Hello. Hello. Good evening, everybody. If I could ask you to take your seats, we're about to start. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. So my name's Cllr Adam. I'm the Exec Director of Finance and Resources for the Council, and I'm chairing the evening tonight. So I'm delighted to welcome you to what's a lovely hall, Porchester Hall, on one of our regular Westminster Together events. And the Council really wants to keep these things going. It's great to see members of the community come along and give them a chance to meet people in the Council and ask your questions. So thank you very much for coming. With us tonight, we have the leader of the Council, Adam Hug, and the Cabinet members. So I'm gonna call out their names, and I'm gonna ask them to stand up and wave. That they'll no doubt get a chance to speak a bit later. I'm just going to do that to start with. So, Cllr Adam Hug, leader of the Council.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
And a real stalwart here tonight, Councillor Aisha Less, Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member for Children and Public Protection, who's come on her crutches for tonight. So I won't ask you to stand up. Over there. Thank you. Councillor Maggie Carman, Deputy Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, Public Health and Voluntary Sector. Over there. For the wave. Councillor David Boothroyd, Cabinet Member for Finance and Council Reform.
Hello.
Councillor Cara Sandquist, Cabinet Member for Communities. Councillor Max Sullivan, Cabinet Member for Streets. Councillor Lisa Begum, I think, has not quite made it yet, but she's on her way.
She's stuck on diversion on the buses.
Okay. Councillor Ellie Ormsby, Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Renters. And last but not least, Councillor Ryan Jude, Climate Action, Ecology, Culture and Air Quality. Thank you. Before I hand over to Adam, who's going to give a short introduction, just like to run through a few housekeeping matters, just to make sure the evening runs smoothly. So tonight is a hybrid meeting, so we have all of you here in the room tonight, but we also are live streaming, so people are joining online and can see and hear what's happening. So we'll also be getting questions from people online, which I'll read out as well. So if you've come here tonight to ask a question, then if we don't get time to get your question asked, we can give you an email for you to send that question in later, and it will get responded to, or you can write it down and give it to one of the officers, and we'll do that, okay? So when you are going to ask your question, please use the microphone that you're given and speak into it slowly and clearly, so that way everyone in the room can hear what your question is, okay? And if you please say what your name is and what ward you live in, if you know. Please keep your questions kind of to the point. So, give a bit of context if you want, but please ask your question briefly, because that means we can get more and more questions in for this evening. Please, no speeches, yeah? We're not here to ask for speeches, just ask questions. Great. And we're here to answer your questions about council services and their communities. So we can't really go off topic, and I'll pull us back if people try to do that. So we want you to get as much out of tonight about the council and their interactions as possible. We're not expecting a fire alarm test, so if there is an alarm, we'll need to leave the building, and we've got fire exits in all four corners of the hall. So just make yourself calmly and quietly out of the building. So just like to hand over to Councillor Adam Hug, leader of the council, to say a few words before we get into the questions. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm actually going to try and follow Gerald's instruction on no speeches. I don't know if I was technically supposed to include me, but I will do my best to make it include me, because the key thing is about getting into questions as quickly as possible. We try and do these events across Westminster, as you know, to bring in as many people as possible, to have the opportunity to meet with council officers to get their questions answered, and have an opportunity to speak to the cabinet members about the issues that matter to them. So really keen to hear from you about what your concerns are and find ways to try and respond to them. We're working hard day in, day out to make Westminster a better place in some quite challenging times. We know the cost of living crisis has not gone away. We know there are some quite big challenges out there in the world. We as a council can't resolve all of them, but we will do our best day in, day out to try and help people and to do better where we've not come up to the mark up until now. We're trying to turn things around in housing, which has been recognised by the housing regulator. We know there's a lot further to go to make sure that everyone's interactions with our housing service meet the needs of our residents. Again, adult social care and children's services are going in the right direction and have been nationally recognised. But we are looking at a city that's got big challenges alongside cost of living, deep-seated inequalities across our city, and pressures of being in the centre of London, alongside looking after a hugely important residential community who are the reason why we're here. So, you are why we're here, and I want to hear from you, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
First question, and then we've got roving mics that will make their way to you, whoever wants to ask the first question. Okay, don't be shy. Okay, lady at the back there.
My name's Susan Kay, and I actually live in Abbey Road ward, but I wanted to ask you whether it is possible for you to publicise meetings like tonight more widely and do it offline, because for people who are not online, it is difficult to know that there's a meeting at all unless kind people like the friend to my right actually tells me and books me in. So could you have posters in places like libraries, community centres, doctor's surgery, and could you also give the ability of people offline to register themselves?
Adam, do you want to?
Thanks very much. Look, absolutely. I mean, I think we have been putting these up for this event in libraries, in GP surgeries, and in community centres. I can't speak to whether that's every notice board in every library, but we have deliberately tasked, off the back of the feedback that you've given to us before in the Older People's Forum and other places, to try and do that. Obviously, there is always more opportunities for us to do that better, but very clearly we have told people publicising this event to put it in the libraries. I've seen adverts for it in our libraries, obviously, but really open to new ways and new places for that to be advertised. And we'll take away your point about registration through other means, but obviously people in our libraries can also help assist with registration and stuff if necessary. But so we'll take away that point. But if there are other places where you think it should be that is not currently on our list, we can take it away and work with you. Sure. So we have asked the libraries to put them up. I think obviously what we can do is pick up that specific library and work out whether it was as widely shared in that library as it should have been. But we can certainly come back to you about that.
Okay, if you can put that on your feedback form as well, the specifics, and we'll get that checked. So
on paper.
Again, anybody who's got the paper feedback forms on their tables, please do that. I'm just going to go to a question online. So, I'll go some online questions, and then we'll have questions in the room. So we've got an online question from Todd on employment. I'd like to know what support is available for a job seeker looking for suitable work. I've gone through a registration process with hours of paperwork with several agencies that advise they would support me. I've been told to look on Indeed and send a generic email with bike messenger adverts. I have 2 master's degrees in marketing and international business. There was 20 years of digital marketing experience. Councillor Hug, would you like to start off? But I think we've got officers in the room to help as well.
I will answer because Councillor Barraclough is unfortunately away this evening due to family bereavement. So Westminster Council does a lot. We have the Westminster Employment Service that we are currently strengthening to help people who are looking for jobs in Westminster. We work with a range of voluntary sector organisations as well, PDT and others, to help deliver job services in the community. And we are working with other partners through Central London Forward and other partnerships with the DWP to bring new people into the workforce using the community connections that we have here in Westminster. We won't be able to resolve everyone's challenges, and obviously you've clearly got a very strong CV, and I think what we'll do is get someone after this meeting to reach out to you online and see whether there's a way in which we can direct you to the best service in Westminster's sort of ecosystem of support services to try and help you with that. But I'd like to ask Cllr Adam if you want to add anything further about the employment provision we have in Westminster.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I think the only thing to say is, as Adam said, if we can't help you, we'll know someone who can. And it's a really easy portal to register. I've got some barcodes for you to scan today. And we will go through a process and work out what the best support is available for you. And as I said, if we can't do it as a council, we'll be working with partners. There's quite a bit of investment in employment support at the moment. There's some new programs rolling out funded by DWP. So just get in touch and we'll be able to help you and support you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next question in the room. I see this lady's hand up here.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask a question on behalf of, I discussed it with a lot of elderly people and disabled residents or less able-bodied residents and those mothers or fathers with young children. I believe that many essential bus routes are now going to be taken away from Oxford Street because the Mayor Sadiq Khan is going forward with pedestrianising the whole of Oxford Street, which is a 1 kilometre street. How exactly are less able-bodied, disabled, or young parents with young children supposed to walk the full length of Oxford Street from one end to the other if you need to get from one place to the other? I've talked to a lot of elderly people who enjoy going to Oxford Street, but the bus routes are essential. If you take away the means to allow them to shop in Oxford Street, they will no longer. So you will have a large percentage of residents, especially Westminster residents, who love going to Oxford Street. But I mean, I myself have an elderly mother. She cannot walk a kilometre. She cannot walk for long periods of time. And also, by the way, I know you're tackling pedestrianisation, but has anyone looked at the majority of shops which are illegal shops selling illegal sweets? And why would anyone pedestrianise that area if there's nothing to go and see at the end of it? And the bulk of shops that used to be there, which were very popular, are no longer there. So it's two things. How are you going to allow people who don't have the means to walk long periods of time to go from one shop to another, where previously you would hop on and off a bus?
Understood.
So there's a huge... And also, what I don't understand is why Sadiq Khan saying that the vast majority of people were backing the plan to pedestrianise Oxford Street. Actually, no, there was a huge amount of people who were not backing that plan, but they weren't being consulted. They weren't being allowed to participate in the consultation.
So, just to be very clear, Westminster Council's proposals were not to pedestrianise Oxford Street. We had a well-developed plan that did have strong community buy-in from local residents, from the general public, from the business community across London, that would have started on site almost over 6 months ago now, and would have been finished by 2027. The Mayor took a decision in 2024 that he wished to take control of Oxford Street and deliver a part pedestrianisation scheme. And we have been responding to that, trying to fight the cause of local residents within that decision-making process. And I think I just want to be clear about a couple of things. At the moment, there are no plans to remove buses from the routes that are running in that area. Obviously, as you know, about 7 or 8 years ago, there was a number of reductions in about 2018-19. At the moment, there are no further plans to reduce the buses that are running through that area, though I can't be 100% sure of changes in the future. But we will make the case for continued bus access. To be clear, in part thanks to the lobbying that we have done as a council, the Mayor is currently only looking at fully pedestrianising the section between Orchardson Street and Oxford Circus, and then a small section between Oxford Circus and Great Portland Street. The rest of that street will remain open to buses, and the buses will ultimately be going up Orchardson Street, along Wigmore Street and down Great Portland Street, because of the work the council has done to make sure that they are committed to delivering the eastern half of Oxford Street in line with the scheme that Westminster Council originally proposed, which was widen pavements, take out the central reservation, more trees, make it a nicer place, but not remove the buses, because we totally understand that buses are really important to the future of Oxford Street. So at the moment, the scheme that is being talked about at the moment will be bus access from as far as Orchardson Street, up Orchardson Street, along Wigmore Street, down Great Portland Street, which means that there will be a section between effectively Selfridges and the Circus where it is going to be more challenging for people with mobility issues. And I totally understand that. I totally understand people's concerns. We continue to make the case to the Mayor and to the new Mayoral Development Corporation that is just being founded now, that there need to be more solutions for people with buggies, with mobility issues, all sorts of things like that.
But they're being excluded. Why was that section of society just being completely disregarded?
So ultimately, the Mayor took a decision that the economic benefits of doing different things with pedestrianisation for that street outweighed the disbenefits. Obviously, we had a different position as a council. We were clear about how we thought our scheme better balanced those priorities. That a consultation was run over the summer. The majority of respondents to that consultation were in favour of it. But again, obviously, there are different responses from those. There are different responses from people in the local area to those who are from across London. So if you look into the detail, there are different views depending on where you are in the city, and also different age groups and stuff. But it was a public consultation that was open for a long time. The majority of responses were that. I would potentially disagree with some of the characterisations that came out about the levels of support, because I think the situation was more nuanced than may have been portrayed. However, the majority of people in that consultation did respond favourably to the Mayor's proposals. But the point is, we know that local residents have got real concerns, and our job as a council is to make sure that those concerns are heard as much as possible by the Mayor of London, by the new Mayoral Development Corporation, when it's created. So that's the challenge we have. We've made real progress since the Mayor took his decision to pedestrianise, to protect certain things for Westminster residents, primarily retaining bus access, particularly on the eastern half of Oxford Street, and because that was the number one thing that we knew was really important. We've also made sure that the Mayor won't be taking money from economic development that would have happened on the street to make sure that Westminster's financial position is protected because of these changes. We've made pressure on security and a whole number of other things, and also trying to make progress in terms of reducing the number of goods vehicles that are going around the area to try and reduce traffic concerns and pressure that way, because we know that there are reasons why people don't want to come to the West End. Some of it is the amount of traffic that is there, issues around air quality and things like that, but we want to make sure that that isn't just displaced onto the residential roads, which is why there is an opportunity to try and change some of those dynamics through freight consolidation to reduce the number of cars in the wider area and not put pressure onto the side streets as there's a risk. But we have made our case. This was not what we proposed. We will continue to work to try and get a better deal for the people of Westminster, alongside recognising the Mayor has taken control, and obviously we'll be trying to make things on behalf of all Londoners. And I think that's the challenge, to make sure that local people aren't forgotten in that process, and make sure that we are delivering a scheme that can actually work in practice, because there's things that are happening in the abstract, in the ideal world, but we know the practical realities, the operation of that ecosystem, both for residents and for businesses and for visitors, which is really complicated. And we think the importance of having the local council in the room to make the case for residents is absolutely crucial. So we will continue to do that. I understand the real concerns about people who rely on the buses, but that's the position that we're in. We're fighting the residents' corner, but we're also trying to be pragmatic about understanding this has happened, and ultimately we've got to try and make the best of what's happening for local people and make it work for London as a whole.
Okay, thank you. As a very comprehensive answer, and I'm going to allow the leader to have a little break and ask someone else a question. So I've got a question online from Wendy about community hubs for Councillor Sandquist. If you want to transfer baby to someone else while we do this. Please, would you be able to tell us when is the new community hub planned for Brunel Estate going to be open?
Hi, thank you for your question. I'm really pleased that we are making great progress on opening community hubs across the city. We've opened one in Charing Cross Library, one in Victoria. We are planning one in Rampayne Street, which will open next year. Also one in Church Street on Dalstone Street. And the Brunel, as you rightly said, is nearly ready to open. I think the opening date is the 13th of December. And we will have a voluntary sector group running that called Happy Lizzie Events, who many people will be familiar with from North Paddington, who run a range of different community events for young people. And they'll be working with several partners to program different activities within that space. Really pleased as well that the hub will be in that particular building, because people might remember it as what was called a family centre before, so it's great that that building is coming back into community use. So if anyone's around on the 13th of December, I'm sure we'll be sharing details through all of the kind of regular council channels if you'd like to come along.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, questions in the room. I've got one over here on this table, yeah, gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Hug. I'm from London Tigers. My question is what is the council doing about the far-right demonstrations that normally tend to happen in other boroughs, but when those boroughs stop the demonstration, everything comes into Westminster. And I know Westminster is the central area parliament and all the other buildings, but what reassurance are we giving to our residents, children and young people that the council is doing enough to make sure that people feel safe on the streets and when they're out and about?
Thanks. So we totally hear you about the situation with the far right. As you said, Westminster is the epicenter of protests from across the country that come to our streets in order to protest at the government. So that role is something that where the police take the lead role, and ultimately they are responsible for managing protests in the city of Westminster. There are certain Westminster has a role to play as a transport authority, but most of those roles are transferred to the mayor, to the GLA, to the Met, obviously who's fall under GLA's auspices. But what we are very clear about is that we have seen over the last few years a really worrying rise in racism of all forms. We've seen Islamophobia massively on the rise. We've seen anti-Semitism. We've seen the social taboos against racism, against black people and everyone else that we thought were on the way out. We have seen people on social media fed by certain billionaire owners of social media companies who clearly are promoting views that are really destabilising for Britain. And I think we have to be absolutely clear that none of that is okay. So there are things that we can do as a community. Ultimately, there is a policing response to people who break the law on demonstrations in Westminster, and that's whether that's any discrimination offences that take place on those things. The Met has a job to do to ensure that those are responded to alongside the responsibility around freedom of assembly and those sort of things that unfortunately we do have. But we need to be very clear that we are opposed to the values that people like Tom Robinson that represent. We have a motion at full council tomorrow setting out our commitment as a city to fight racism wherever we find it, to respond to those issues of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and dealing with the rise of the far right, which I hope will get support from across the council. It's certainly the majority party position. We've got a new community equality strategy that we're launching that is fed by input from local residents about their lived experiences in Westminster. We're doing we have important work of the Faith Exchange that I went to a really powerful talk on last week, which brought together one of our vicars alongside a rabbi and an imam, talking about the different experiences that they've felt serving their communities and how dealing with some of the challenges of extremism they've worked together. And it was really heartening, issues that they'd had outside Regent's Park Mosque a couple of years ago. The fact that the mosque was able to work with the local rabbi and the local priest to try and get a response to the extremist Hizb ut-Tahrir and and al-Mujahideen and sort of the extremist Muslim groups and the far right who were there as well, and to respond together as a community to get a response to that. But we are clear as a council that there's more that we can do. We're holding a number of events, both in early December and hopefully in the new year, to try and celebrate the unity that we have as Westminster. Westminster has always been a place of arrival for people from communities from around the world. We've had it from the Irish community back in the day, Windrush generation, people from Bangladesh, from across the Arab world. We have brought people from around the world who've made their homes here, made their communities here. We celebrate our diversity and our different cultural heritage, but we join together as a community of people in Westminster who, whether it's like people who get involved with Tigers love sport, or singing or cooking, or there's all sorts of there are so many things that we brought together that we want to celebrate, and that's the work that Cllr and her team are doing around community hubs and things like that. Making more opportunities for our communities to come together. Things like tonight, where that's hugely important that people from all across our city, from all walks of life, can come together as part of one Westminster family that we have here in Westminster. We are clear about the values that underpin what we're trying to do as a council. We will constantly be trying to do better each day, but we know that our communities are feeling really worried at the moment, and we will do what we can to support them. And I'm sorry, Aisha, do you want to add anything else?
I think you've mentioned every single point, but what I want to add is that the demonstrations and protests, that relies totally on the Met. They give the permission, not the council, and I think people always confuse and think that we give permissions to protest, but it's actually not in our gift to do that. And so the police, and by and large, they rarely refuse any protesters coming into London and into Westminster. What we do, we have sort of licensing rules around if they wanted to build a stage, then they would have to come to us and they would have to apply for a license for a stage and amplified music like anyone else has to. And I think the last protest, there was a lot of on social media around Tommy Robinson basically blaming us for not allowing their protest to go ahead, and actually they didn't meet the deadline for the license for the stage, but they did have a stage, but protests are totally in the hands of the Met Police, and they give the permissions, and they also know the route in advance, and we get that as well as part of one of the stakeholders, as well as our bids, the business improvement teams around Westminster. So thank you very much for your question. It's really important. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go for another question in the room. Gentleman at the back with the hand up the highest.
Good evening. I have a question for Cllr Hug. I understand at the present moment, Councillor, you have a stream income that you refer to as CIL, Community Investment Levy. In the past, as you know, that is replaced what was known as the Section 106. And that basically, for people that don't quite know it, was a scheme where developers paid the council X amount of money for the rights to provide social housing. My query is, when at the present moment your source of income is from developers, now bearing in mind, Councillor, that you have recently established a number of companies within Westminster, Westminster Build is the overall company, where you are purchasing and building your own properties. So the source of income at the present moment, I foresee, will dry unless the council pay themselves. Could you shed any light on the situation, please?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. So to be clear, Section 106 still exists for for affordable housing development linked to private development. Cllr is the element that relates to the community infrastructure, the community infrastructure levy, which has two parts. It was introduced back in 2014, I think, in Westminster. So you have a strategic level Cllr, which is basically integrated with the council's capital programme for the delivery of all sorts of schemes, some of which, the enabling works for housing development, but mostly for transport developments and other things like that. And then there is neighbourhood Cllr, which an engagement process happens with the local community about spending on community priorities, mostly on physical infrastructure, but with a little bit more flexibility. So those things exist there. So 106 for developments is retained for the affordable housing element. But in terms of the stuff that you're referring to, so Westminster Builds was again created probably 6 years ago or something like that, 6 years ago. Originally, the intention of the previous administration was that it would be being a bigger developer than it is at the moment. What it is currently doing, I think, is acting a particular role in terms of some of the intermediate key worker units of some of the Westminster zone developments. I'll pass to Councillor Ormsby in a second, who may be able to provide more detail with that. But if you're referring to the council's own development schemes, there are a range of different delivery formats that we've got at the moment. We're moving ahead with building new homes. Obviously, we've seen the new scheme at Ebury come through in its first phase. We've got Westmead opening in January. And there's loads of things we've done to increase the proportion of council housing within those schemes. But they're mostly different delivery models, which Westminster Builds isn't directly part of. But I will pass to Councillor Ormsby and possibly Debbie Jackson, if you want to. Yes, for the purpose, again, Councillor Ormsby can explain that. Obviously, Westminster historically has also had links to one other housing developer in terms of Westminster Community Homes, which owns a number of properties within Westminster's own stock. But Councillor Ormsby and Debbie Jackson can probably say a bit more.
Yeah, just on the Westminster Builds front. So the council itself, we are building over 2,000 homes up until by 2030, we would have built over 2,000 homes, 1,100 of which will be affordable homes. Westminster Builds is just one of the kind of mechanisms or delivery routes that we use to build those homes. So, for example, it is going to be used on the Ebury Phase 2, if you correct me. So that will be coming through soon. And yeah, we are also seeking registered provider status for Westminster Builds as well.
That's about enabling it to retain some of the units long term in terms of accessing different grant rates, because at the moment the Mayor of London will only give certain grant rates to things that are held within a registered provider. So that's to maximise the amount of money that can be spent on our schemes. But it's, as Ellie says, it's about 1,100 new council homes for social rent and a couple of hundred more key worker homes that we're delivering through our programme. We are currently consulting on a number of different schemes going forwards. But as I said, compared to a couple of years ago, Westminster Builds isn't as big a part of the delivery part of those schemes, because we have a range of different relationships, some of which are directly built by the council, others in partnership with developers such as Mount Anvil for Church Street. But there are different models. But yeah, obviously all the tune of what, sorry? So the HRA obviously is.
Can we just we'll divert that question to housing? Do you want to pick that one up?
Is it on? Yeah, just to confirm, the HRA is not in deficit. It's in a healthy position, and we've got, we're going through the budget process now, but to confirm there is reserves, we're in a healthy position. There is a challenge for cross-housing more generally, that there is lots and lots of changes in regulation coming in, which continues to add pressure around resourcing. But no, we're delivering to budget. We've got a 30-year HRA business plan, all on a stable footing. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go another question in the room. We've got less coming in online, and that lady there looks very enthusiastic, so you can go next.
My name's Angela Thompson, and I live in Kilburn Lane. My issue is, as a lady, well, for me, I just feel disabled people are being ignored. Mainly parking. People think because we have a blue badge, we get free parking anywhere. My problem is, on the end of my road, there's one parking bay for about 50 disabled people in the area. And you go to the Harrow Road next to Iceland, there are only 2. There's 2 bays between maybe 30 people within a couple of roads. Why can we not get more disabled bays? Because it seemed to be more for able-bodied people, bike sheds, everything else. If I can't get somewhere to park because my mobility is very limited, I have to go home. And that can happen 2 or 3 times out of the week. I want to go to the Harrow Road, and I can't. I'm fighting people who say, oh, I'm going to be a minute. I want to park. I can't understand why Westminster is so... I understand parking is good for everybody's got a car. People want to go where they want to go. But when you're limited in your mobility and you want to go to the main road, there's one bay, one, that we have to fight over. I can't walk that far. I have to go home. I have a disabled bay, which I've asked the council if they can put a barrier in my bay because I'm fighting people out of it. They tell me, wait your turn. I said, it's my bay. Go away, I'm going to be 5 minutes. Or I'm just popping into Sam's. Why is it disabled people are so dehumanized? In London, I had to go outside, go at the back of the building just to come here. Other countries help disabled people. I'm fighting every day for somewhere to park. And I don't see why we fight every day we're fighting the government just to get benefits, and we're dehumanized for it. I try to park in my own disabled bay. I'm dehumanized for it. And when I go shopping, a taxi driver's in the one disabled bay there is. I can't get out and fight somebody. So I want to know, can Westminster do more for us so we can go out and shop? And not to say, I can't get nowhere to park because I can't walk. I have to go home. Able-bodied people can park anywhere they like, but they park in my disabled bay because it's convenient. Why cannot we have fines, like for my disabled bay, if you park there like every other country, £250 fine if you park there? Why cannot, I would like Westminster to supply us with more bays. I mean, I came here, one bay round the corner, and luckily there was a bay there. If there wasn't, I wouldn't be here. We have to do better for the disabled. Anybody can be disabled. I used to work, run up and down my stairs. My housing association said, I'm not sick enough. I have to climb up 15 stairs. We have to do better for the disabled. I went to Wales. They had 12 bays on each side of the road in the main Newport shopping centre, 12 on each side, and they're all filled with blue badges. And we're supposed to be the richest so-called country in the world. That's what they say. But there's nothing for disabled people. There's no lifts. There's no walkways. We are degraded by walking out of the building to go around the back where you deliver food and everything else. Can Westminster do better for us so we can be part of the community? Okay. You talk up for us, saying we include vulnerables, but it's just words.
Yep, thank you for your question. I'm going to ask Councillor Max Sullivan to answer that to start with. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for coming. Did you say, was it Angela? Hi, Angela, I'm Max. So part of my portfolio includes parking. So that's I'm going to speak mainly to that bit of it. But you made so many good points, and across a wide range of issues, accessibility to buildings, benefits. So I'm going to speak directly to the parking bit, and maybe other people might want to come in on the other points, but I'll talk specifically to the parking, because you made such a powerful point, right? So there's a few issues there. There's, are we providing enough bays for you? I'd be happy to exchange details afterwards and just, make sure for the trips that you need to make, are we providing enough at your destination, at your home? It sounds like you've got an allocated bay near your home. Obviously, it's horrific that people come and I can't pretend to understand what that's like. But what I can say is that we do have, obviously a team of marshals who should be enforcing the rules on those disabled bays. Disabled bays should be for blue badge, for genuine blue badge holders. We also have a separate issue with blue badge fraud, which we've been cracking down on as well. But it's not right. Clearly, it's not right. If you've got an allocated space, or if it's a disabled bay in general, in other contexts, I've seen that of people, parking up on the pavement and blocking people's way and saying, "I'll be a minute, I'll be at 5 minutes." Like that 5 minutes is for many people, that's going to completely prevent them from making that trip that day. And beyond that one trip, it's how are they feeling the next time they're leaving the house. And so, like, I sympathise, but I know I don't understand exactly what you're going through, but it's not right. So in terms of enforcement, happy to look at, are we doing enough enforcement specifically on the bays that you're talking about, and can we provide more disabled bays? Because absolutely, in terms of the people who need to have access to their vehicles and be able to move around the city freely and access every property, we should be prioritising above deliveries, above people who are not got those mobility issues. Absolutely, you should be prioritised, and that's clear. As a council, we're very clear that's the case. So I'm very happy to swap details and make sure we live close to each other. So I know the areas you're talking about, but we can discuss exactly the details, and I'd be happy to try and get a better resolution. So in terms of providing more bays, but in terms of the enforcement, because as you say, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it's not acceptable, right? It's as you say, someone doing that is really hurting people's ability to enjoy the freedom of their lives and get around. So it's not right. I'm happy to look into that and do more.
You have to fight there's about 8 bays near the outpatient. I have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning for a 9:30 appointment, just so I can get a bay. Go to St Mary's, all the bays are near the station, they're nowhere near the hospital. You can't expect, because it's free. It's not the point that it's free, it is about being part of the community. You say we are, but we're not treated that way. When they when they do building sites, they don't take away the able-bodied parking bays. They take away the disabled ones. It's not fair for us. We are part of the community, and we are so dehumanized. I would say when I see my disabled bay, it means dehumanized.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure Councillor Sullivan will come back with more details about what we do and further initiatives around that. So thank you very much. So I'm going to go online to a question from Lydia to Councillor Ormsby. What will you be doing to try and remain the character and individual quality of Church Street Market as you renovate and build more housing in the area? What are you doing to avoid the disappearance of the wonderful market stalls that serve the needs of the less affluent of our community, is the question.
No, and that is a great question. So for context, Church Street is obviously a ward in Westminster, and we are going to be delivering there over 1,000 new homes. In terms of what we're going to be doing to support the market infrastructure, so one of the things I've been really pleased that we've done on the second 2 parts of the programme is we've done a full kind of co-design process. So we've been involving businesses, local residents, community groups, all through that process, so they can input and obviously provide their input on what the market would like to see, what sort of infrastructure it would need to improve and make it better for the market that's already in existence there. We've been very clear that for any, market holder or person or business who owns who's leasing a shop in Church Street, that they'll be very welcome to come back in the new development. And we're working with them to make sure all their needs are provided for, because I agree, Church Street is a very, very unique place. The market is incredibly special, and this development is going to work with the market and enhance it more than anything else. So I'm really, really pleased that we will be committing to that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ormsby. Another question in the room, right at the back there.
Just following on, I've got a question to ask, but just following on about the blue badge fraud. I spoke to somebody who's autistic, and they said you should use an app for the blue badge. So it's like a blue badge app, and then when you have like a QR code in your screen, and then they could do it that way. So you could use an app. An autistic person told me that. So that might be a way to stop the blue badge theft. So you don't have a physical badge inside of your window, but then the parking attendant can still see that you have put your timer on a blue badge app. And my question is, what is the council doing to help families with children who have disabilities get into larger properties?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Aisha Les, do you want to pick that one up in terms of children?
The children's team work closely with our housing team around making sure that their homes are adequate and suitable for their new needs. But that obviously that is a long process, because it needs to stem from the parents saying that actually they may have stairs, or so if they've got children that have some disabilities, it might be quite challenging taking them up and down stairs. And so, right. So you're talking about overcrowding.
Okay, so we're going on to a housing bit.
Right. Right.
Aisha.
Yep. So Lisa, my colleague, will talk on housing.
Thanks. My name's Lisa. I'm cabinet member for housing. So we recently reviewed our housing allocations policy, and what we have done is introduce the new generation scheme, which is for adult children that can apply for housing. I completely understand. So let's take your details. Let's look at all your housing issues.
So just to be clear, obviously one of the things that Lisa's done recently is change the allocations policy to make sure that people with different needs are stacked, so that previously you would either be in one lane for issues around overcrowding or disability, but it's been reformed.
So yeah, we've added cumulative. Okay, so let's have a look at your specific issue. We have added cumulative need. So previously, we had people that were either on the overcrowded list or medical need, but we understand that people can be living in overcrowded housing and also have medical need. So let's look at that issue. We have made changes to our housing allocations policy, but also this is more Ellie's portfolio, but we are also building more social homes, and in Pimlico, for example, we will have more family-sized homes. I know, I'm just giving you an example, I'm really sorry, but there are, in the pipeline, more social homes being built, and hopefully more homes that are accessible for disabled people. But after this, if I can take down your details and we can look at your specific issue.
Okay, thank you. And good shout on the app. We'll definitely pick that one up as well. Okay, any more questions in the room for people who haven't answered a question? This gentleman here at the front. Do you want to wait for the microphone and then tell us your name as you ask your question?
Yeah, my name's Mark Smithers. I live in Little Venice. Down the end of my road, our street, there is a through street between Warwick Avenue and Maida Vale. And it's very noticeable that a third of the traffic in this residential road that is travelling through all the way through the street, and is not stopping for purposes in this residential area. There's a shocking statistic about Westminster that's been the case for a long time now, that vulnerable road users are more likely to have suffer death or serious injury because of motor vehicles in Westminster. It's the highest injury, not rate, but numbers across the whole of London. And it seems to me that the solution to this problem is to reduce traffic. We've got to reduce traffic both ourselves. We've got to understand that there are other ways to travel rather than by private car requiring parking at commencement and destinations. There needs to be more equality of access for other possible users of the road. I would point out that, so I'd like to know what the council are doing some great things for vulnerable road users. There's no doubt about that. We've got the informal zebra crossings happening. We've got some cycleways finally coming in to London. But the love of the motor car is a serious problem. And I'd like to know what the council is doing strategically to address this issue.
Okay, thank you. Probably going to ask Councillor Max Sullivan that, who's also holding the baby.
So I'm going to stay sitting if that's all right. Thank you for the question, Mark. So I think this is, you're right, we do have an ambitious program. We're aware that there is a very acute problem. You know, as you pointed out, Westminster has the unhappy position being the borough that has the most people killed and seriously injured of all London boroughs, and that's a position we've held for some time, including in 2024. That is mostly in order of people being hurt. That is people who are walking, people who are cycling, and people who are motorcyclists, and they're predominantly being killed or seriously injured when they are being struck by people who are driving private cars, people who are driving goods vehicles, and people who are driving motorbikes. So we can't pretend to, be ignorant of those facts. Absolutely. I think it's been a problem of that the council in the years past has not had a strategic approach to its all of its transport policies and bringing those together, which is why at the moment we have the council's first ever transport strategy, which we're consulting on at the moment, and has as one of the key 6 themes to reduce road danger. So welcome your feedback on that and everyone's feedback on the room. It is clear that to improve road danger, but also to improve meet our commitments on climate, there does need to be an overall reduction in traffic, in terms of motor traffic. But we also know that most people in Westminster are not, either owning cars. About a third of people own or have access to a car. And most people, if they do own cars, are not using those regularly to get around Westminster. Only about 15% of people who live in Westminster use their cars regularly to get around. So most people are already travelling by bus, by tube, by walking, by cycling, however, other means of travel. So we are, but we are a central London borough where there is a lot of through traffic coming in, whether it's from goods vehicles or from neighbouring boroughs or from outside of London. And I think that's something that we need to look at seriously as something that needs to be tackled through the transport strategy. I think it's something that we haven't yet really faced up to or reckoned with. There have been measures, like the congestion charge, but that for most residents of Westminster, they won't be benefiting from that directly because they're outside of the congestion charging zone. So I don't have the answers, but I think I just want to reassure you that we are aware that it needs serious consideration, and that reducing the amount of the volume of traffic on our streets is not just going to improve the air quality, make people feel safer getting around, but it's actually going to save lives. And I think this council, across political persuasions, has supported 20 miles an hour, which has been a really, really positive thing. And now we need to think about, what's going to be the next thing that's gonna stop people from being killed and seriously injured. Because there's people walking around Westminster today. There may even be people in this room who wouldn't be here without measures like 20 miles an hour. And I think we have to stand up and be honest about that and be proud of the achievements we've made so far, and not be afraid of saying what's the next thing that might, on the face of it, seem difficult to do, but ultimately save people's lives.
And just very briefly to build on what Max pointed out, every year the proportion of households in Westminster that have access to a private car is going down, but the amount of traffic on our roads is not necessarily coming down by a commensurate rate. That is why the work that needs to happen is, a large chunk of it is with businesses, about the number of times vehicles are coming in to service their particular needs, whether that's retail, whether that's hospitality, everything else, and that's a work that we can partner. We're trying to do more work with the BIDs, the business improvement districts across Westminster. We're trying to do work with the Mayor of London, as I said, off the back of the situation in Oxford Street, to try and get a cohesive approach to reducing the number of vehicles, the unnecessary journeys coming into Westminster, by getting the number of businesses to work together to share the transport load and move it off polluting and dangerous vehicles onto things like cargo bikes. So that's the vision of what we're trying to get to. But that'll be the thing that I think can make a real difference to the amount of traffic on the roads, because it's not at the moment people going about the city on a day-to-day basis in their cars for the most part. But that's something we're strategically working on. But it's so important to have that cohesive approach that Max has outlined to give us that opportunity to move forward.
Sorry, Adam did just remind me that before Christmas we should have another last mile delivery hub launching, which the council is actually incubating and paying to set up in the West End, which is going to replicate what we've done in Pimlico and some other sites that we're looking at around the city. And what that means is that you have a van coming in with goods, and then instead of many smaller vans going out to deliver those goods, is you have smaller vehicles, electric powered cargo bikes, on foot deliveries. It's worked really, really well so far. It's taken literally thousands of trips off the road, and we know that goods vehicles are driving a lot of that traffic and a lot of that injury. So there are practical things we're doing, but I think it needs that kind of cohesive view through the transport strategy as well.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Max, do you want to pick that one up?
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I don't know if we can see each other, but try and, he seems to be in better form, so I'll try standing. Was that yourself? Sorry, I couldn't see what you asked. I'm sorry to hear about that. That's really awful. Shortly after my son was born, I thought when I was crossing things like zebra crossings and on the pavement, that suddenly all the things that had happened to me when I didn't have my son would stop happening because I was carrying around a little baby. It's not the case, is it? It doesn't necessarily matter how vulnerable you look as a road user. Sometimes people will come barreling at you, whatever kind of vehicle they're on, and it sort of shakes your faith in humanity, and I'm really sorry to hear that. It's horrible. I don't know in your particular case, but I know that a lot of the things that are reported to me and a lot of the things I see are often cases they're vehicles that were originally bicycles, and then with conversion kits that have been bought online, they've been turned into whatever effectively and legally are electric motorbikes. So there are a lot of those things, and that's, to be honest, I think where a lot of the danger and people's concerns come from. On the face of it, they look like bikes, but they actually, as you can see, without pedaling and using a throttle, can get up to 30, 40 miles an hour on the streets and on the pavements. They're already illegal. So we're pressing the police to do something about it. They are also getting more powers from the government, which we've supported. Through the crime and policing bill, they'll be able to seize those kind of illegal bikes immediately on the spot. At the moment, they have to issue a warning, and then, you know, if they catch them again, etc., it's cumbersome at the moment. So they're going to get powers through the new crime and policing bill that will allow them to seize those bikes immediately or faster, which we've already spoken to the Met Police to say you need to use those powers more and more effectively when they come in, because it's a really big problem. Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think the other thing I'd like to see, and you know, we'll do what we can at a council level to lobby for this, is I'd like to see the companies who are driving, incentivizing a lot of the kind of dangerous behavior we're seeing on the streets actually play their part as well. A lot of the times these are people who are delivering food or groceries or whatever, and they're incentivized because they're paid a certain amount per job, and they're essentially incentivized to jump red lights, to take whatever shortcut they can to get around those things. And companies like Deliveroo and Just Eat, and they're not wearing any of the risks in this situation. It's us who's walking around who's wearing the risks of that business model. So I'd like to see them held to account for they're essentially profiting off that model, and those people are incentivized to behave in that way. That's clearly not everyone. Clearly there's still some people who are riding on the pavements and the rest of it. So it's I'm sorry to hear about that, and I just want to reassure you that we're very alive to that issue, and it's not acceptable. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Max. I'm going to go to an online question for Councillor Ryan Jude. This one's from Emma. What's the council doing towards improving air quality? It's a big issue, and I want to see more happening.
Yeah, thank you, Emma, for that question. We've actually just released our updated air quality action plan this summer. We had an event in Hyde Park to launch it. We co-developed this with local residents, with businesses, with community groups, not just from here in Westminster, but also experts from further afield. And I really highly recommend, first, Emma, that you look at the action plan. I'm happy to go through any of the details and any of the key points that are in it. But the one that I'm really proud of is that we, for the first time, committed the council to meeting World Health Organization targets on air quality, which is something that we have to do to make sure that we have a healthy environment for residents and businesses in Westminster to live and to work in. There's plenty of detail in how we're actually going to deal with those actions, and Max actually touched on some of it already, because sustainable transport is a big part of it. Another big part in the longer term is on building regulations. How do we embed in planning in such a way that we have energy efficient homes that don't use gas inside them? And actually, one of the really interesting things that people aren't as aware of in Westminster is that more than half of the dangerous air pollution that we have in the city comes from gas cooking and the use of gas in our homes. As it's invisible, you often cannot tell the impact it's having on yourself, your family, and your neighbours. And so there's plenty of actions that we're working on in terms of what we do with our own properties, but how can we encourage homeowners in Westminster to reduce their reliance on gas inside their own buildings. But it also extends to commercial buildings, and we have our Sustainable City Charter here in Westminster, which is our way that we engage with businesses where they commit to not just reduce their emissions and to consolidate their freight, but also to reduce their use of gas. And this is everything from how they heat their buildings to Michelin-star restaurants using gas cookers rather than electric cookers. And we're running a campaign at the minute where we have some of the very successful restaurants in Westminster who are going out to other restaurants to show them that you can still succeed business-wise if you use a healthier source of heating. So there's plenty of things in there, and lots of them are in action right now. Lots of them will be coming along the track. But Emma, if you email me afterwards, you can find my details online. Happy to talk about any of the specific actions then. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jude. So questions in the room?
Thank you very much.
Gentleman with hat on.
Thank you very much. I want to talk about crime in the area. I live in Queensway, near Queensway, and it is my impression that crime has increased in the last year and a half or 2 years. Just to give you a few examples, I have a friend of mine, he owns a restaurant near Queensway Station, and that was broken into a month and a half ago, roughly. The restaurant across, the Chinese restaurant across the road from Waitrose, that was broken into. And I recently went to 3 Mobile during the afternoon, and I found that the staff had locked themselves in. And I had to wait for them to let me in. And I said to them, what's happening? They said to me, we were afraid. There's been a lot of burglaries in the area. And that's why we've locked ourselves in, and we only open the door when there's a customer. Another example is the building where I've been living. Touch wood, we haven't had any crimes for the last 20-something years, but then several break-ins over the last year and a half. And I personally have been living in Westminster all my life, and I was mugged for the first time last August. And this lady was there, and she saw it, yes. Yeah, so there's been a lot of crime, or an increase in crime, over the last year and a half. Of course, I don't want to sound prejudiced, but I've also learned that there's like a prisoner release program in the area. And I've seen a link. It might not be, because correlation does not imply causation, I know. But, you know, these people, there's a center for them somewhere near Queensberry Terrace. And if there's a fire engine, you're sure it's going to that building. If there's an ambulance, it's there. If it's a police car, it's there. So there must be something. It must be something to do with them. So, so my question is, has there been an increase in crime, and what are you doing about it? And the second question is, this prisoner release program in the area, how are you supervising it? What are the checks and balances in place? Because this could be a potential problem. Yes, so that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Hug, do you want to start that, or should I go to Councillor Less first?
Okay.
Councillor Less, you go first.
Thank you very much for your question, and I'm really sorry to hear of your experiences. So we understand, obviously, there is a detrimental impact on these issues, and the issues that they have on our communities and residents and businesses. So what we've done to strengthen the council's response, we've we're going to employ 9 new dedicated police officers that will be introduced by the Met Police Office, by the Met Police Service, who are solely focused on ASB issues across Westminster. This includes 1 sergeant and 8 police constables, so they will be joining us by January 2026. So we're really, really pleased about that. And this will also form part of our police and council tasking team, working alongside council officers such as the street-based intervention team, who are already tackling violence in our Victoria area. And it's been a real success. Already we've seen over 500 sort of incidents that have been picked up by our officers that are constantly on the streets patrolling the Victoria area, and we will be moving across Westminster to kind of answer to those concerns. Also, we also have 135 cameras that have now been deployed, with additional 65 cameras still to come. These cameras are monitored 24/7 by our control centre in Hammersmith and Fulham, and our CCTV camera is a tool that can be used by local teams and the police officers to basically try and find some of these culprits. Already in in September, 100 incidents were picked up. Last month, the use of camera footage led to arrest in 10 instances. Already during October, we've captured many incidents. This includes a stabbing, and with key footage shared with the police. Another incident captured this month so far was a major drug dealing case with Class A substance and a knife being recovered. So already we are doing a lot behind the scenes to make sure that ASB is stubbed out completely. And I get it. You know, Westminster is in the heart of the UK, and people come to Westminster from all over the world, and not just Westminster. And I know that we have, you know, particularly in the West End, we have over 6,000 licensed premises, you know, throughout Westminster. And so we do have a very high concentration of licensed premises, venues that are open later, with alcohol and you know and people enjoying themselves, but that doesn't mean that people in our residential areas should have their lives blighted by ASB. And I'm really, really sorry to hear of your personal experience about being robbed. It's not nice. I had my phone robbed from my hands, snatched out of my hands last year on the Edgware Road in broad daylight, and it is very, very, very scary, and it's not a nice place. But we are doing everything we can to make sure that ASB is kept to an absolute minimum. So I'm hoping with our new policing team that come from the Met, they'll be in uniform, they'll be managed by Westminster Council. So although they are part of the Met policing force, they are managed by us and they are paid by us. We invested £3 million over 3 years for these officers, so I'm really hoping that they would add a real, there'll be a very good addition to the team that we already have in place.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Less. I don't know if Adam, did you want to pick up with that other part of the question?
Yeah, so I think we'll take away the issue around the hostel. I think as far as the people in the room are aware, there isn't a specific link to prisoner release, but we will look into any particular concerns around ASB that are related to that. But I think there may be some misunderstanding about what's going on there, but we will look into it and find out if there are any particular antisocial behaviour concerns there. But there isn't a strategic plan for the release of people into that area. As Councillor Lester said, we are doing an awful lot. We're obviously currently consulting on the, we just finished consulting on the borough-wide PSPO that we are looking to roll out into some of the key hotspot areas across Westminster. We've done the work on CCTV to re-establish that network, and there are a number of cameras throughout this area. But there is a lot more that we could do, obviously putting pressure on the Met to make sure it's delivering more police officers wherever possible into our communities as well, but totally understand the concerns people have, and we'll keep doing our best.
Okay, thank you. We were scheduled to finish at 8 o'clock, but happy to carry on if people have got more questions. Any more questions in the room from anyone who hasn't asked a question yet? That lady there? So.
Good evening. Yeah, I want to follow up on what talked about some other meeting as well, and a bit what these other two ladies have said about disabilities. I would like to see all councils, Westminster's, Kensington, to treat people with disability, whether visible or invisible, as myself, more humanely. Because there are people being trashed on the streets, and I was, as I said in previous meeting, rough sleepy, from January to June, and then in Marylebone project, and then trashed back on the street. And despite I got well-documented disabilities. So how can that happen? Why everybody's looking at people with disability being treated by adult social care? They are awful. I mean, the head of by borough, Kensington and Westminster are the same people. How can they just not take charge when there are people like that suffering? And just see that. And there was this guy, James Silvestre, which insulted me on the phone. I don't want to repeat it because it's a bad word that children hear as well. But, you know, he insulted me, yeah? And he said, fire, yeah, on the phone. And this is disgusting. And I believe that this should not happen. I did report this to the board, what is called, the care standard board, and both counts are being investigated. However, I would like to see people like this lady with the power chair, good point, I clap at her, but also people that have disabilities in general. I don't want to see them on the streets anymore. You know, they've been duly accepted. It doesn't matter. They refuse the property. They were with Kensington. They were with Brent. They were from Manchester. It doesn't matter. If they've been rough sleepy for a long time, they are vulnerable. Why? Why nobody's taking charge? I mean, the head of Barbara, David Bello, well, the other person, like Anna Reilly, they're all always very nice. They say, call your council, tell them what your options are, and they banned me for 1 year, so you can't meet anybody, you're just excluded, and whatever done, nothing, just being myself, you know? So, you know, this is totally, is unequal, how we're being treated. And also when I have a word about the people on Marylebone project, because I was living there, what's gonna happen to all these women? Some of them may be disabled, vulnerable. Where are they gonna go in March? You know, so this is obviously, you know, they're treating me really bad at Malibu Project because they put me on my health navigator. You know, this is another thing. The NHS Imperial, you know, there is something called the Out of Rough Sleepy Pathway for people with disability. So St. Mary Hospital refer me as rough sleepy with disability to a Marylebone project, and St. Mango referred me there as well. And then because I didn't want to go and live in North Westminster in a place called Witham Hall, where there were only males, recovery from drug and alcohol, I had to share toilet with males, and already, you know, I don't mind to share it public. I got put on a criminal record at 52 years old because of support home in South Kensington, you know, because I was put with a rehabilitated offender, trying to defend myself. And then the justice system is not fair neither. So, you know, all I'm saying is, I say no.
Do you have a specific question? I know
the specific question is, what are you doing at Barbara, the social services, as a council? What are you doing to treat people with disability? I go back to the issue, people with disability, people with vulnerabilities, more humanely, not as a unit, humanely, but also to make sure they're not on the street. And where, like now I'm living in a B&B with people on drugs, where there is, you know, damp and mold, no hot water on certain days, no eating on certain days. Everything is falling apart, out of community. I don't know anybody. I feel absolutely, you know, depressed. It's depressing, and it's not nice what they have done. When an health navigator should have done better in Westminster.
Yep. Okay, let's see if we can pick up those points.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Obviously, you came and spoke last time. We know your own needs are particularly complex, and I know a number of councillors here have tried to help you. Obviously, your situation crosses different boroughs, and to be clear, by borough only relates to shared services in adult social care and children's social care. It doesn't relate to housing. The housing departments are entirely separate and sovereign. We have obviously enormous challenges in terms of rough sleepers here in Westminster. We have the largest number in the country by an enormous amount. We have extremely well-developed service for trying to provide help with them. But the basic reality is that people come here from across the country to Westminster to get help, and we cannot provide permanent housing for everyone who does that. We have to provide reconnection services and support, but it is not reasonable, it is not within the law for us to provide permanent accommodation for everyone who comes and sleeps roughly on the street, but we have a real duty to help them, which is why we've been investing more money as a council to help people on the streets, and the government has provided additional funding over the last year. We're beginning to see the numbers come down from what was a very high peak last year. There's an awful lot more that we can do to deal with those issues, but the issues around rough sleeping and temporary accommodation are enormous for all local councils. We will do what we can as a council. As I said, obviously we can't speak to what Kensington or other boroughs have done from a housing perspective, but there are huge challenges. We understand that we want everyone who comes us to be treated with dignity, but that doesn't mean that we can always help be the person who's responsible for providing the assistance. But we've got to help make sure people know where to go when they need help.
Okay, thank you. This gentleman on the table here had his hand up earlier as well, so do you want to get the mic here? Thank you.
Yes, this is a question that has been raised before, but Westminster Council is currently doing nothing about cyclists and motorcycles going through red lights. Now, you now have had statistics come out in the Daily Telegraph and so on about the number of hundreds of people that they've counted within an hour. Where I live very centrally, I live just off Baker Street, and I've now seen cars going through red traffic lights because they're seeing that there's no police on the road and nobody's stopping these cyclists and motorcycles, so therefore, what's there to stop me? London was supposed to be a well-governed, law-abiding country. Why isn't somebody doing something about this? And because it's happening most often in Westminster, what is the council going to do about this?
So to be clear, as I think has been pointed out previously, jumping red lights is a moving traffic offence that is managed by the police. Obviously, with a whole range of things that we're doing to intervene to make our streets safer. And Max, who is now back from, I wasn't sure whether he was off looking after the kid around the corner, but Max can answer that. But very clearly, it's a clear role for the police. Obviously, we're investing in enforcement cameras and other things to assist on certain areas, but what you've just described are mostly moving traffic offences. So.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, I see it all the time as well, and it's dangerous. Like a lot of people, particularly when it comes to motor vehicles jumping red lights, do end up getting hurt and killed with that kind of behaviour. So like lack of enforcement is a problem. There is a roads policing unit that I met with recently, actually just on Gloucester Terrace, just across the road from here, and I think that they have a proactive person in that team now within Westminster. I think there's been some we have had issues with resourcing the police. Clearly, over the course of decades, we've had local policing cut back to the bone. We're now seeing that situation improve in Westminster with us, as Councillor Les said, investing in local police. So I think we'll see that situation improve with more local police. There will be more resources to tackle these kinds of issues, which, as you say, lower level offences can kind of create the environment for more dangerous things to happen. So yeah, while it is a Met Police issue, I'm happy to chat afterwards and pick up the specific issue and raise it with the roads policing team, and whether it's have specific operations carried out in that area to deter behaviour, or look at road design issues that we can address, then we're happy to look at that. But yeah, as Adam says, the specific issue of enforcement and moving traffic offences is something that lies with the Met Police, but we obviously want to create the environment and lobby them on your behalf if there's specific things that we can highlight to them. So I'm happy to share details with you afterwards, and we can pick that up. Yeah, I mean, red light jumping has existed for as long as red lights have. So I think it's an issue we're aware of going back much further than a year. I think there's always going to be a core of people who will do it if they think they can get away with it. But you're right that if they don't see it being enforced, then that, does that behaviour spread? Do you start to see not just, one or two people doing it, but, it becoming more common? So I'm happy to look into that and see if that's a problem. I think,
okay, thank you.
I think on powers, I think one thing that we're lobbying, which is a widespread problem, I talked about the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit earlier, because speeds and red light jumping, all that kind of behaviour is obviously connected. Currently, only the police can enforce the speed limit. We believe that local councils should be able to do that, and then to be able to recover the cost of that enforcement through the enforcement itself. Currently, that is something that can only be done by the police, and they can't cover their own costs in order to put in new speed cameras because the money goes back to central government. We think that situation should change because we think it would mean the council could do a lot more in tackling speeding, and I think we could, then it would also help us to tackle some of the related issues around red light jumping and other dangerous road behaviours.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move us on for one last question. If you can carry on with the conversation afterwards. So look, I think we'll just get one more question out to the audience, and this one is online. This is for Councillor Les. Now this is from Sue on young people. During COVID, many young people missed out on school and training and fell behind. What can Westminster Council do to help young people catch up?
So COVID was, how long ago was it? 5 years ago. So I think we've kind of recovered from COVID in terms of making sure that kids caught up with their studies. I mean, laptops were given. I mean, this was before my portfolio takeover, and certainly before our administration took control of the council. But there was take up of laptops for every child. There was extra kind of activities after school to help with maths and English and kind of some of the mainstream subjects. But obviously since then, we've seen falling numbers of pupils in our local schools due to obviously people not having children as they used to once upon a time. And so, but we do a lot of activities around half term, school holidays as well. We also have after school clubs that offer sort of extra tuition in terms of maths and English and science. So I've not had any reporting back from parents recently around their children falling behind academically. We work really well with our schools, and we have free breakfasts as well at our schools that also encourages our parents to take up that offer, because we understand, we know that a child fed at school will do better academically throughout the day. So there's all sorts of things that we do. I'm happy to take if you want to send me an email, my email is on the website, but it's ales@westminster.gov.uk, if you can still hear me. If not, it is on the website, and I'm happy to talk further on this theme. And but as far as I'm aware, our parents seem okay and actually happy with their children's development and how they're getting on in school. But yes, totally, I understand. It was a knock, not just for school children, but it was a knock for children that went to further education at college and at university as well. So, but we are doing everything we can to make sure that children are fulfilling their potentials at school. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Less. Ask the leader, Cllr Adam Hug, to make some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thanks. Really appreciate everyone who's taken the time to come here tonight, both obviously all of you in the room and those of you online as well, and really hope that we'll have the opportunity to follow up on those any outstanding questions and particular casework that you've raised. Just to give people a heads up that on the 15th of November, if you are a Westminster Council tenant, we are holding our first ever tenants conference, which is a free event set up by the council to bring together tenants from across Westminster. I believe it's happening here in the Porchester Hall from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on November the 15th. So please do. Now, I'm about to say something that's going to trigger Sue. Register online, but if you not to do it online, register here, that we will find. No, I'm not trying to be funny. No, what I'm literally pointing out that what we will want to do is make sure that you can register at your estate offices and other things like that for that conference. That's literally why I'm going to, because I'm literally Well, you can call the council and they'll be able to do it. But obviously we're trying to encourage it in person as well. But you can certainly do that online from now. But in terms of, really want to make sure that you are able to come to other events like this, because we're holding one of these early in the new year. Do we have the date yet, guys? If not, we will make sure that's sent out to. Sorry, 11th of February. I believe in South Westminster, but I'm not 100% sure where. So we'll come back to you on that precise. It's at the Abbey Centre, someone says at the back. So Abbey Centre, 11th of February, because we want to have other opportunities to get people together to talk about this. So thank you ever so much for coming, and we'll see you in February, if not before.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.